Hello guys, welcome back to TFD. Today we've got a really interesting topic to talk about, the potential Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers team up. It's something fans have been talking about for a long time, and honestly, the anticipation around it is huge. But at the same time, there's always this weird conversation where people try to pit them against each other, like it's some kind of rivalry. The truth is, if you actually watch the game and understand how both players operate, it becomes very clear that they are not the same type of player and they don't even naturally play the same position. That's why the whole Clark versus Bueckers narrative has always felt a little forced. In reality, their skill sets are very different, and that difference is exactly what could make them such a dangerous combination. When you look at Caitlin Clark, the first thing that jumps out is her role as a floor general. Yes, she became the all-time leading scorer in NCAA Division I women's basketball history, which is absolutely insane. But what makes that even more impressive is that scoring isn't actually her natural instinct. Her natural instinct is to create for others. Caitlin is someone who controls the entire pace of a game. She reads defenses, manipulates space, and constantly looks for opportunities to set up teammates. Her passing vision is elite, and she thrives when the offense flows through her decisions. In many ways, she's the kind of point guard that makes everyone around her better. On the other hand, Paige plays a very different style. Paige is what you'd call a combo guard, but at her core, she's an elite scorer. She's incredibly efficient, extremely composed with the ball, and she's one of the best pick-and-roll operators in the game when it comes to creating her own shot. That doesn't mean Paige can't pass. She absolutely can. She takes care of the basketball and makes smart reads. But when Paige is running a pick and roll, her first instinct is usually to look for her own scoring opportunity. That's just the type of player she is. She is the shot maker. It's similar to how some teams use players like Sabrina at the point. Technically, they can play that position, and sometimes they will if the lineup requires it. But ideally, you'd rather have a true facilitator next to them so they can focus more on scoring and attacking. That's where the potential pairing with Clark becomes really interesting. If Clark is running the offense and controlling the flow of the game, Paige can operate as a scorer off the ball, attacking closeouts, working in the pick and roll, and taking advantage of the attention Clark draws from defenses. In other words, their strengths naturally complement each other. But there is one interesting element when you think about how Clark might adjust to United States women's national basketball team. When Clark played in college, everything revolved around her. The offense was designed for her to take risks, make bold passes, and play through mistakes because the team was built around that style. At the international level, things can be a little different. Team USA is stacked with elite players. That means Clark might have to shift slightly from being the centerpiece of an offense to being someone who fits into a system filled with stars. Her aggressive playmaking and risk-taking could occasionally lead to turnovers, and on a team full of elite talent, those mistakes stand out a bit more. So in some ways, Clark's biggest challenge might simply be adjusting to a situation where she doesn't have to do everything. Meanwhile, Paige might actually slide into this environment very easily. She's incredibly versatile and can play multiple roles depending on what the lineup needs. That's why many people describe her as a Swiss Army knife type of player. She can play the 2-guard, she can slide to the 3, she can even handle minutes at the point if needed, and in certain small ball lineups, she might even spend short stretches playing a forward role, something we've seen during her time at UConn Huskies women's basketball. Because of that versatility, Paige can adapt to almost any lineup combination. Clark, on the other hand, will likely play almost exclusively at the point guard position. That's where she's most effective, and that's where her ability to control the game truly shines. Now, when people talk about this backcourt pairing, the biggest concern that comes up is usually defense. Some fans wonder if Clark and Bueckers together might struggle on that end of the floor. But when you really break down the roster, that concern might be a little exaggerated. Team USA already has strong defensive players on the perimeter, including athletes like Jackie Young and Kalia Copper. Those players can take on some of the toughest defensive assignments, allowing Clark and Bueckers to focus more on what they do best offensively. And offensively, this duo could be absolutely terrifying. Imagine a lineup where Clark is pushing the pace, drawing defenders, and firing cross-court passes while Paige is cutting, spotting up, and attacking mismatches. defenses would constantly have to decide who to prioritize, and that's a nightmare scenario for opponents. This is exactly why so many fans have dreamed about seeing them together. There was even a time when people joked that Clark's early team should have tanked just to secure the chance to draft Bueckers, creating a long-term backcourt partnership similar to what dynasties in the league have done in the past. Whether that ever happens at the professional level or not, the idea of Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers sharing the court is incredibly exciting, because instead of competing against each other, their games might actually elevate one another, turning two great players into one of the most dangerous backcourts in basketball. All right, guys, let's continue talking about the potential Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers backcourt, because the more you actually break it down, the more it feels like a combination that naturally works. At the end of the day, this is one of those duos where the players can really play into each other's strengths, and that's the biggest reason why people are so excited to see them share the floor. When you think about Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers, their games are very different, but that difference might actually be the key to making them work together. For example, one thing I feel pretty confident about is that Caitlin is going to find Paige. That's just how Clark plays the game. Her entire mentality is about reading defenses and creating opportunities for teammates. If Paige is open, Clark will see it. If Paige is cutting to the basket, Clark will find her. That's simply the type of floor general Clark is. Now, the other way around, it might not be quite the same dynamic. That's not a knock on Paige at all. It's just about understanding what type of player she naturally is. Paige is a scorer first. Her instinct is to attack, to create a shot, and to put pressure on the defense. That's what makes her special. In fact, if we're being honest, Paige is probably the more natural scorer between the two. A lot of people might argue that because Clark put up historic scoring numbers in NCAA Women's Division I basketball, but scoring totals don't always tell the full story. Clark can score at an incredible level, but her natural instinct is still to facilitate. She's someone who enjoys creating offense for others just as much as she enjoys scoring herself. Paige, on the other hand, is wired to get buckets. That scoring instinct is a huge part of her game. So when you put those two styles together, it actually creates a really balanced backcourt. Clark runs the offense. Paige attacks the opportunities that come from that offense. And when defenses collapse on Clark's playmaking, Paige becomes an even more dangerous weapon. Now, if you add strong two-way players around them, someone like Jackie Young or Kalia Copper, the lineup starts to make even more sense. Because one of the biggest questions people always bring up about a Caitlin Clark-Bueckers backcourt is defense. Fans wonder if opposing guards will try to attack them. But when you actually look at the international competition they're likely to face with the United States women's national team, the concern might be a little overblown. Take some of the guards from other national teams. Italy's top perimeter player is Cecilia Zenda-Latsin, who is definitely talented. Spain has young players like Iana Martin. Then you've got experienced players like Maria Conde. These are good players, no doubt about it, but realistically, none of them are the type of offensive guards who are going to completely dominate a Clark-Bueckers defensive pairing. Neither Clark nor Paige is a bad defender. They're not elite lockdown defenders either, but they're solid enough to hold their own. And when you're playing for Team USA, the overall talent advantage is usually so big that small defensive concerns rarely become a major issue. In fact, some matchups could become extremely one-sided. There are games at the international level where Team USA can absolutely run away with things if they decide to push the pace. Against certain teams, the score can get out of hand very quickly. It's not unusual to see huge margins in international tournaments when a powerhouse roster clicks offensively. That's why the Clark and Bueckers pairing is so intriguing. Offensively, they could be devastating. Looking ahead to the future, especially when we talk about major tournaments like the FIBA World Cup or even the next Summer Olympics, the guard rotation for United States women's national team could start shifting towards more offensive creativity. Players like Sabrina Ionescu, Caitlin Clark, and Paige Bueckers all bring strong offensive skill sets. They're not known primarily as defensive specialists, but they create so much scoring pressure that it changes the way defenses have to play. Long-term, it's possible that Paige becomes the slightly stronger on-ball defender, while Clark develops more as a help-side defender. Paige is physically strong and uses her body well, while Clark's instincts allow her to anticipate plays and rotate effectively. But overall, they could end up being very similar level defenders over time. Offensively, though, that's where the real excitement lies. Even if neither player starts immediately for Team USA in the biggest tournaments, it wouldn't be surprising at all to see lineups where Clark and Bueckers share the floor together for long stretches. And when that happens, it could create one of the most dangerous offensive backcourts in international basketball. Because when you combine Clark's playmaking with Paige's scoring ability, the result could be a duo that completely overwhelms defenses. Tell me what you think. Don't forget like and subscribe.